r/AskReddit by Redmond ETS. Redditors, what are your most interesting roommate stories? My South Korean roommate in college played StarCraft, 2 not sure, well into the night. We're talking like I'd be getting up to go to class and he'd be logging off. It cured my insomnia. Listening to a game in a language I didn't understand was very soothing, apparently, and I went from taking 3-4 hours a night to fall asleep, if I would at all, to falling asleep within 30 seconds of laying my head down. I'm pretty sure I used to live with a hobbit. Man about 5'1", curly brown hair, constantly cheerful demeanor. Never wore shoes, inside or out. Literally slept on the floor in what can only be explained as a nest of blankets. Started a garden and encouraged me to eat his tomatoes all the time. Would bring home samosas and other goodies, always giving me half just because. He and his wife had a dream of living off the grid in a tiny home on a truck. I hope he's doing well. We met when we showed up for dorm room assignments our freshman year of college. Almost 50 years later, we're still the closest of friends. I recently attended his daughter's wedding. A grand affair, because he happens to be uber wealthy. At one point I found myself choking up, and it wasn't for the bride and groom, it was for John and me. How far we'd come from that first awkward handshake a half-century ago. My roommate once created a whole new life form by leaving beans in the fridge until they molded so bad they became pure white. Then she got mad when I threw it away because she was going to use it later. My roommate in college claimed he was involved with the mafia. He was constantly sweaty, was very jumpy, and always had a lot of cash in his car. He never was around on the weekends, and I never saw him drink. Strangest of all is that he never once slept in his room. He was always on the couch by the door. He eventually told me that it was because if someone ever broke in looking for him, he wanted them to find him right away, so no one else would get hurt. I still don't know if he was telling the truth, but nonetheless I always locked my bedroom door at night. There are plenty, but one of my roommates used to sleepwalk and sleep talk almost every night, and I was the only one who'd be awake whenever it would happen. I'd witness her cleaning our fridge, sealing our open bag of chips, and I'd hear her quote Shakespeare in her sleep. What made her go back to bed was me asking her to sleep, and she'd look at me and close her eyes. Whenever I asked her if she recalled any of it, the answer was always no. When he skipped out on rent and moved while I was at work, he left behind some of the most interesting videos I've seen. He was into amputees and urine. He also vomited on the carpet, never cleaned it up, and it ate through. I didn't get my deposit back. My freshman year college roommate was a random pairing. This kid partied all night and slept all day, legit wouldn't wake up until 5 p.m. He goes MIA for like a week. I call my mom because I'm not sure he's even alive. She searches to see if he has been arrested. Before she can call me back, the cops are knocking at our door and ask, "Have you seen blank?" And I say no. Mom calls me back a few minutes later. He had been booked for robbery at a convenience store which was in our dorm building. He tried to hide in an air vent. He made the front page of the campus newspaper, was expelled, and I got the whole dorm to myself for the rest of the fall and spring semester. I spent over a year falling asleep to the angry, muffled, whisper but not really arguments between my roomie and his girlfriend. Just muffled enough that I couldn't understand what the problem was, but they were clearly not happy together. So I'd just lie in bed wondering, what's my duty of care here? Like they weren't violent with each other, and it wasn't like one person was terrorizing the other. It was just two young people in a consensual and mutual spiral of despair. First college roommate rarely did laundry and would borrow my underwear, especially for dates, and return them dirty and washed. I told him in unequivocal terms to keep his hands off my junk, but he'd borrow whatever he needed anyway. I used to live with 2 strippers. Needless to say, they weren't early risers. One Sunday morning, we get a knock at the front door. Jehovah's Witnesses. So, Kay goes to the door and invites them in for coffee, while buck naked. Kay's pretty, impressive naked. Built like China in her prime, lots of tattoos and piercings. Needless to say, they left quickly. And we never had missionaries at our door again. Came home from my first day of classes to poop everywhere. Toilet seat, tile, bath mat, toilet paper holder, sink, carpet. Had a long discussion. Not acceptable. Happened again. Took 6 weeks to get her out. What was her rationale for it? Was she super sick and couldn't get to the toilet in time? And then decided not to clean it up? Yeah, we need more explanation here. I think she had IBS, but it was just alarming because it happened multiple times. I taught a roommate how to boil water. Iced tea was the first thing, other than sandwiches and salads, that she had ever made. I had a roommate who threatened to take everything I owned out of my room and put it on the sidewalk, because I was keeping my bike in our living room after she had declared a not agreed upon rule that there couldn't be any personal items in our common space. 2 weeks after I reluctantly agreed to store my bike in my tiny bedroom, she ordered this table for our entryway. My college roommate didn't know how to do laundry before we started school. We had a community washer and dryer on our floor. Probably the 3rd week of school, I went down to get a soda from the machine and I walk in and there are bubbles 4 inches deep on the floor. My roommate walks in behind me to check his laundry. He had put 3 full scoops of Tide in the washer with his load. I had to take him to an off-campus laundromat to wash all of the excess soap out of his clothes. A few years back, my former roommate and I let our downstairs neighbor move in with us because the guy he was living with had taken up a new habit. He'd befriended the pigeons that hung out on the rooftop outside his bedroom window and eventually started taking them inside and caring for them like pets. Stuff got real dirty real quick. He started watching me from dark corners of the house at night if I was in the common areas. Super freaking creepy. Edit. I love how a creepy ass experience turned into something so cute. Hahaha, thanks Reddit. Senior year of college, I lived with 8 other students in a house. Girls upstairs and boys downstairs. One time the boys were really rowdy, so I went downstairs to check it out, and this girl from my literature class was beating in their fridge with a fire extinguisher. I think I've lost the ability to be surprised after that year. I'm just going to list all of them. My rental situations were largely co-ed. The guy who came here for university, but really for legal recreational marijuana. He spent all his money on weed and video games, and almost got evicted for not paying rent, so his brother drove down and gave him rent money, which he promptly spent on more weed. That was a fun shouting match between the guy and the landlord. A girl who moved in was utterly unremarkable in the sense of zero drama, and was genuinely pleasant the entire time. And then she stole a bunch of people's stuff and moved out. Aforementioned girl's boyfriend who moved in as a separate tenant with her. The boyfriend's best friend came with him. The best friend was like the human version of a chihuahua. He thought he owned the place, wanted to fight everyone, but was so tiny he wasn't exactly threatening. He ate everybody's food and used up everybody's toilet paper to the point he started pilfering paper towels for wiping. Landlord decided the best response was make him sign a lease. He didn't pay. Landlord evicted him only for him to still hover around anyway. The boyfriend moved out and Chihuahua guy left with him. A girl who toured the place, met everyone, moved in, and then moved out citing she felt unsafe because there were too many guys. Not knocking her for prioritizing her safety, but, like, she knew how many guys lived there well before she signed a lease. There may be more to that story that I'll never know. A guy who would sit on the couch and partake from a wax dab rig for hours on end. Forget high. That man was stratospheric. An older lady who was basically female Keith Richards, at least by law. She had stories involving just about every kind of drug. She had a cute dog and I snuggled that dog every single day. The guy who turned out to be on the sex offender registry. He didn't do anything to me or anybody else, but I learned my lesson to background check roommates. Found out when a cop knocked while he was away. The guy whose only furniture in his room was a tent. He slept in a tent. In a room. I was honestly impressed. The guy who was only there for about 3 months because he had finished 2 degrees at once and just needed a place to crash while he searched for a job. My first college roommate had black sheets. She has lots of sex, thankfully while I wasn't there, but never washed the sheets. Had a roommate that was a liar and a stealer. I saw photos of him on Facebook wearing my clothes. I confronted him and he said he must own the same shirt as me. He went out and bought the same shirt a couple days later and put it on. Then he handed me the old shirt saying he found mine behind the dryer. It was stretched out and had his distinct smell on it. What a piece of shit. That's all folks. Thank you for watching. If you like videos like this one, why not like and subscribe for more? Have a nice evening.